How does political will block IHL distinction prosecutions? Imagine a world where rules meant to protect civilians or are ignored because leaders choose not to act. That's what happens when political will gets in the way of enforcing the principle of distinction under international humanitarian law. This principle says that, during armed conflicts, parties must tell apart soldiers from civilians and only target the soldiers. But many times, political motives stop these rules from being enforced properly. One big reason is that governments often hesitate to pursue legal action if it could hurt their own interests. For example, if prosecuting violations might expose military misconduct or damage diplomatic ties, leaders might choose to look the other way. They might think it's better to keep quiet than risk political fallout. This reluctance can prevent investigations from starting or slow down prosecutions, even when violations are clear. Another issue is that some states pick and choose who they hold accountable. They might focus on certain groups they see as enemies or terrorists, while ignoring violations committed by their allies or own forces. This selective enforcement weakens the idea that all parties are equal under the law. When civilians are harmed, but no one is held responsible because of political favoritism, it encourages more violations. Political interference also plays a role in judicial processes. Governments might influence or pressure courts and tribunals to drop cases or soften sentences. They may refuse to cooperate with international courts or hide evidence that could lead to convictions. This kind of interference makes it harder to hold violators accountable and weakens the system meant to uphold the rules of war. International cooperation is essential for enforcing the laws of armed conflict. But political interests often block efforts to share evidence, extradite suspects, or support international tribunals. If a country fears that cooperating might threaten its leadership or expose sensitive information, it may resist or delay justice. This resistance allows violations to go unpunished and emboldens those who ignore the distinction principle. Even when laws are in place, prosecutions need political backing and resources. Without the political will to allocate funds, train investigators, and support judicial processes, enforcement remains weak. Governments might prioritize other issues, leaving civilian protection and accountability as secondary concerns. When political leaders choose not to pursue justice for violations of the distinction principle, civilians suffer. Without accountability, attacks that harm civilians or target only combatants become more common. This lack of consequences encourages more indiscriminate violence, increasing human suffering during conflicts. To change this, the international community must keep pressure on governments. Diplomatic efforts, stronger legal institutions, and clear commitments are needed to ensure that all parties respect the Geneva Conventions and laws of armed conflict. Leaders must see that respecting the distinction principle is not just a legal obligation but a moral one to protect innocent lives.